Is do no harm as simple as it means in witchcraft? Such a common topic. This idea of whether or not we are creating spells or rituals that create harm to others or are coming back to us times three. This idea of where ethics sits in our practices is such a common question that I get that I want to talk you through some things to consider today when you are planning your own spells and rituals and where your own ethics sits within those questions. So hello, welcome. My name is Tahverlee. I'm a high priestess, a practicing witch, and the founder of the Moon Temple Mystery School. And it is my deepest desire for you to remember and awaken your power and use it to create a sovereign life filled with whatever you desire it to be. And there's a lot of misconceptions about ethics and about doing no harm and what that actually means. And a lot of times it is an inconsequential question for a lot of people. And for some people, it's crippling. It stops them from doing their workings or creating their life with spells because they're afraid of this idea that they might be intentionally harming someone else. So let's start with where do no harm comes from. And this is traditionally through a different type of modern witchcraft, especially in the Wiccan tradition, because a lot of practitioners see this now as something to be so careful of, to tiptoe around, as if you are doing something for yourself, but it intentionally harms someone else, as something that's bad. Now, this is not talking about baneful magic, hexing, cursing, left-hand path magic whatsoever. That is your own choice, and you should evaluate that for yourself. And that's not what this conversation is about. This is about you. When you create intentions or do workings for yourself, if that might create harm for someone else. Now, no matter where it comes from, we must first explore how you define harm. What is harm? So if the idea is to do every spell with no harm to anyone, I actually think if you add that to every spell, you're actually going to hurt your own outcome, depending on how you define harm. If you define harm as, of course, taking somebody's life or banishing them to be in darkness the rest of your life, well, you might classify that as harm. But what if something that benefits you or your family or protects you and your loved ones, what if that to someone else harms them? The scale at which you define harm is big. So I do recommend that you really spend some time identifying the word harm before you write in every spell with no harm to anyone. Before you do that, define what does harm mean to you. That might mean something totally different than you even thought of. And remember that if you are creating spells or rituals that are people-pleasing, meaning you don't want to do it if there's any potential of impact to anyone else, don't even do the spell. Because we can't control everything. Magic is an influence. And yes, I'm a big believer that we can create something from nothing, but really the nothing is our thoughts and our beliefs. So if we can create from a seed of an idea and build a whole life around it, there is also a component around that that we do not control. And that is why it's called a mystery. And so yes, your intentions and your spells are powerful. And yes, it can unintentionally create harm for others if you define harm as X, Y, and Z. But if you redefine harm, that means redefining that there is an infinite number of possibilities for everyone. Let's talk about a couple of examples. If you were to create a protection ritual for someone because you think they need it, or they asked for it and you put your hand up and said, of course, more in the sense of if you think they need it. But really, if you're creating a protection spell for anybody else, you might be harming them by taking away the powerful lesson they would have learned to live it. It's true. And I say this to a lot of people that do rituals and spells for other people without asking for their consent. To me, the greatest harm we can do is not get consent before we do a working for someone else, before we give our knowledge and wisdom to someone else, before we meet someone and say, oh, I feel an orange color around you. Did you know that there's a jaguar spirit guide walking with you? That to me is more harmful than most of the intentions that you would do, because that particular human might not be ready for that information. They might not be ready for that path. They might not have asked for it. So I see a lot of this idea of consent being violated more than anything. So when it comes to, say, as an example, protection rituals, you might be taking away somebody's necessity to learn a lesson. Not always, sometimes. This is just an maybe. Or if you apply for a promotion at work and there are 8 of you up for that promotion, if you get the promotion, then that means 7 people do not. So if you were to cast a big, powerful spell for it to work in your favor, for you to be the one to get that promotion, you are unintentionally or intentionally ensuring that 7 other people don't get that job. Is that harmful? Well, only you can decide that. If you believe that the world is abundant and there is an unlimited number of possibilities and that our souls are all intermixing and we're all creating many different ways, opportunities, pathways, and doorways all the time, then you can't take away somebody else's opportunity because they will get another one. If you believe that you cannot violate universal law or soul code and magic is just an influence to put you in the direction that you're meant to go or to clear the path in the direction that you're meant to go, then it's unlikely that you can create harm. Remember, we're not talking about baneful magic. That is a whole different subject. There's no question of harm to none if you're doing baneful magic. That is not in this conversation. So what do you do with this? Does it mean we never cast spells? Does it mean we never take the action? No. It means we do it with responsibility. It means we do it with our own spell at being a choice for ourselves and those that we love. It means not doing workings for other people unless you have their consent. It means knowing what harm means to you so you can develop your own ethics. And I just had a conversation about this in Witch School in my community. If you want to join, we'll put the link in the show notes. I do once a month full live events, and every week there's content. And I was just talking about the ritual that I've taught several times before, and I might bring it back again, which is how to create your own code of ethics. And your own code of ethics, we do a spell for it, and we seal it, we singe it, we roll it up. It's a scroll, and it allows you to have sort of a North Star in what it is you do with your magic and what you don't. And it's going to be very different for everyone. What I deem as harm is going to be very different than you. And I also think that there is a certain level of experience that comes in with practitioners that you know when you're skirting the edges of violating others' free will to bend it to your favor. It's an energy, it's a feeling, and it can be something you choose or not choose, but we usually know when we're bumping up against it. Those are the ones that you want to apply your own values and ethics to. But those that you create intentions for yourself or your family or with consent, they're rarely going to create harm in a way that isn't already fated to be. Meaning there's always going to be a consequence. This is a reality of living life. That's not just the reality of witchcraft and spiritual practices. That's life. There are consequences to every decision we make, to every choice we make, to every choice we don't make, to every time we say stay silent, to every time we speak truth. There's always consequences, and that's no different than in witchcraft and in rituals and spells. It's the same. These universal principles exist. Now, do I believe that if you're doing something intentionally to create harm to someone else, that it will come back to you times 3? No, I do not. That is a Wiccan belief that I don't see it that way, because it is all about how you define why you're doing what you're doing, which is the true meaning of intention. Intention isn't just, the spoken word recipe part. It's the spoken word part of a spell. Your intention is your energy and your feelings behind why you're doing what you're doing. If what you're doing, what you're choosing to do is based upon petty revenge, something minuscule, something that is jealousy bound, or something that is just harmful for harmful sake, there are consequences, just like there would be in your human life if you acted that way. Ethics are ethics in witchcraft, in rituals, and in life. So here are a few questions to ask yourself before casting a spell. Am I acting from sovereignty, love, or fear or anger? Is this for control or for liberation? Who else might be touched by this working, even indirectly? Am I prepared to accept responsibility for all outcomes, seen and unseen? In fact, I don't think that you should just ask these questions for your spell work. I think you should ask them in life as a whole. We have to remember that witchcraft and spell casting is not outside of us. It's not something just that we do. It's something that we are. And even if you push it aside and you just do this thing over here, but you live this way, it's most likely what your ethics are over there are also going to be your ethics here. So you can formulate that to be what feels right and wrong for you. Most of us feel like we have a general idea of the definition of wrong or bad. But listen, in 2025, we have realized that idea is very different for everybody. It's very different. And how people justify it, how we justify it, how we walk amongst our daily lives with ethics in play or not. Whew. I heard something recently that was super interesting to me, and it was about someone who did something to protect their family and violence occurred, but it was in the entire circumstance was that they were needing to protect themselves because they were experiencing something that was very violent and unpleasant. And the person that did the violence to protect his family said afterwards that he didn't realize how close we all are to doing something that we would deem as very bad under the right circumstance. So I judge not. I don't give you the exact formula. I just want you to consider whether or not with harm to none is even possible in your spells. And does it really matter if you are ensuring that your ethics are aligned for you for anything that you do? Now, my ethics might be very different than yours, and this is why I'm not giving a specific formula for this, because what I know to be true in the spirit world and the unseen worlds and what happens in both the light side of humanity and the dark side of humanity is very deep. The lines that I draw in the sand will be very different than you. And that should be the case. It should be different for all of us. But the important thing is knowing for you. And if you follow me and you know me well, then we're probably more aligned than you think. And I know that you know this because many of us have had this conversation in class, in witch school, on live streams, in all the things that I deliver. I do talk about these things very often. Even something as simple as a cord cutting or an energetic release could be deemed harmful to the other person if they really want it. And I care not in many of those situations that I do for students. So just remember that harm to none is an enigma. And the best thing that you can do is know yourself, know your ethics, know what feels good for you. Ask yourself the questions that I've given. This isn't a cut and dried conversation, and there actually isn't a finish line for this conversation. Even if you know your own ethics and your own values, I guarantee you, under the right circumstance, you would blur those lines. So I hope this has been helpful. I want to answer this question because it comes up a lot. And if you have not yet checked out The Holy Darkness, A Witch's Descent, or the 2026 Intention Wheel. Those are the classes that we have going on in Mystery School for the rest of this year. Check the link in the show notes, as well as Witch School. Those are the places you can find me, and I will see you again soon.